On what felt like the darkest day of my life, my husband, Tremaine, dragged me into court and accused me of being a failed wife and an unfit mother. He demanded everything: our house, our money, and full custody of our daughter. I thought I had already lost, but then, inside that cold courtroom, a small voice suddenly broke the silence. "Your Honor, may I show you something?" It was the voice of my 7-year-old daughter, Zariah. Before we continue, leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps this channel grow and bring you more powerful stories like this one. That morning started just like any other morning in our house. Before the sun had fully risen, I was already awake. I stood quietly in the kitchen, wearing simple clothes, moving carefully, as if every sound I made might trigger a storm. The scent of freshly cooked breakfast mixed with laundry detergent from the washing machine spinning nearby. I had learned over the years how to exist quietly in my own home. At exactly 6 in the morning, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Tremaine appeared, perfectly dressed, freshly pressed shirt, expensive watch gleaming on his wrist. Without a word, I placed a cup of hot black coffee and a steaming breakfast plate on the dining table. He sat down without looking at me. "The coffee tastes bitter today," he said flatly, his eyes glued to his phone. "I'm sorry, honey. I thought I measured it right," I replied softly. He didn't answer. He pushed the plate slightly away, took a few bites in silence, and continued scrolling on his phone. I stood there, awkwardly, waiting, just in case he wanted something else. Nothing. The silence between us felt heavier than the air itself. It was cold, sharp, and suffocating. I couldn't remember the last time we shared a morning filled with laughter. Maybe 2? Maybe 3 years ago, before his late nights and endless business trips became normal. "Is Zariah awake?" he asked, still not looking at me. "Yes, she's in the shower. She'll be down soon," I answered. Moments later, light footsteps echoed down the stairs. Zariah appeared in her neat school uniform, her smile bright and innocent, so different from the tension that filled the room. "Good morning, Mommy. Good morning, Daddy." She kissed my cheek, then ran to her father. For the first time that morning, Tremaine looked up from his phone and forced a smile. "Good morning, Princess. Hurry up and eat. Daddy will take you to school." "Really? I'm going with Daddy today?" Zariah's eyes sparkled. I quietly exhaled in relief. At least in front of her, Tremaine still pretended to be warm. As soon as Zariah finished eating, Tremaine stood up, grabbed his briefcase, kissed her forehead, and walked straight toward the door. He passed me like I wasn't even there. No goodbye, no glance, no acknowledgement. Only the sound of his luxury car pulling away echoed through the massive, empty house. The rest of my morning passed in routine silence. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, folded laundry, and cleaned every corner of the house with obsessive precision. I believed, foolishly, that if the house stayed perfect, if I stayed quiet enough, if I tried harder, maybe the man I married would come back, but that man was long gone. At noon, I picked Zariah up from school, my favorite moment of the day. She skipped beside me, holding my hand tightly. "Mommy, I got 5 gold stars today. I answered the question correctly." "That's amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you," I said, smiling and pinching her nose. "I'm so proud of you." When we arrived home, I was helping her take off her shoes when I heard the sound of a motorcycle stopping in front of the house. A courier shouted my name. "Nala, package for you." I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. I opened the door and received a thick brown envelope. There was no sender name, only the logo of a law firm printed in the corner. My heart started pounding. "Who is it, Mommy?" Zariah asked. "Probably junk mail," I replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Go change your clothes. Lunch is almost ready." As soon as she ran upstairs, I sat down on the couch. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of legal papers. The first line made my vision blur. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I felt the air leave my lungs. Plaintiff, Tremaine. Defendant, Nala. Reason for filing? Failure to fulfill marital duties. Failure? I kept reading. He wasn't just asking for a divorce. He demanded full custody of Zariah, claiming I was emotionally unstable and incapable of raising my own child. And worst of all, he demanded everything, the house, the savings, every asset, because, according to him, I had contributed nothing. My knees gave out. The papers scattered across the floor as I collapsed, numb and shaking. So this was his plan. The front door opened. Tremaine had come home early. He stood there, staring at me on the floor, the documents spread everywhere. His face showed no guilt. "Honey, what does this mean?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "It means exactly what you read," he said coldly. "I don't want to live with you anymore. You failed, as a wife and as a mother." "Failed?" I sobbed. "I gave everything to this family." "All you did was spend my money," he snapped. "Zariah deserves a better mother." "You can't take her from me," I screamed. "You can't take my daughter." He crouched down, his eyes filled with a hatred I had never seen before. "I can, and I will." Then he smiled, a smile that froze my blood. "And don't worry, even your daughter will testify against you." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside Zariah's bed, watching her breathe peacefully, tears falling silently down my face. What had he told her? How could a man be so cruel? The next morning, Tremaine acted like nothing had happened. He prepared Zariah's uniform and took her to school. When she asked why my eyes were swollen, he replied casually, "Mommy isn't feeling well." After they left, panic swallowed me whole. I searched for lawyers, but I had no money. Our joint account? Empty. $0. Transaction after transaction showed Tremaine had drained it for months. My jewelry? Gone. He had planned everything. Desperate, I contacted an old friend who referred me to a modest lawyer named Attorney Abernathy. His office was small, worn down, and far from impressive, but he listened. After reviewing the case, he sighed deeply. "Your husband doesn't just want a divorce, he wants to destroy you." I swallowed hard. "But those things aren't true. I've never met this psychologist. I've never abused my child. I've never—" "I know," he interrupted gently, "but the court doesn't work on feelings, it works on evidence, and right now, most of the evidence is on his side." His words felt like a slow knife to my chest. "So, what do we do?" I whispered. "We fight, but you need to understand, he's going to try to provoke you. If you lose control even once, he'll use it against you." I nodded, though my hands were trembling. At that moment, I didn't know how much control I would soon be forced to lose. That night, I noticed something strange about Zariah. She was unusually quiet. Normally, she would chatter endlessly about school, her friends, and the stories she made up in her little world. But that evening, she barely touched her food. "Sweetheart, is everything all right?" I asked gently. She hesitated. Then she nodded. "I'm fine, Mommy." But she didn't look fine. Later, when I tucked her into bed, she wrapped her arms tightly around my neck, tighter than usual. "Mommy, will you ever leave me?" My heart shattered. "Never," I immediately said. "I promise you, I will never leave you." She stayed silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Even if Daddy says you're sick?" My body froze. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. She turned her face away. "Nothing. Good night, Mommy." That was the first moment I realized something far worse was happening behind my back. Over the next few weeks, Tremaine transformed into someone I barely recognized, at least in public. At school events, he smiled warmly, shook hands with teachers, and volunteered for parent activities. Other parents praised him endlessly. "You're so lucky," one mother told me. "Your husband is so involved." I forced a smile. If only they knew. At home, his manipulation was quiet and calculated. He never yelled. He never hit. He whispered. "Your mommy cries a lot," I overheard him tell Zariah one night. "She gets confused sometimes." Another time, he said, "I worry about you staying alone with mommy. Daddy just wants you to be safe." Each word was poison. "I love my daughter," I whispered. "That's all." The lawyer smiled. "No further questions." I knew it then. I had walked straight into their trap. After court, Tremaine approached me in the hallway. "I told you," he said softly, so no one else could hear. "You're making this worse for yourself." "Why are you doing this?" I cried. "She's your daughter too." "She'll forget you," he replied calmly. "Children always do." That night, I broke down completely. I locked myself in the bathroom and sobbed until my chest ached. I didn't hear Zariah enter. She stood silently by the door, watching me. "Mommy," she said softly. I wiped my tears quickly. "I'm sorry, baby. Mommy just had something in her eye." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and left. I didn't know she had just made a decision that would change everything. Days passed. The next court session approached. Attorney Abernathy looked worried. "If this continues," he admitted, "the judge may award temporary custody to your husband." Temporary. The word terrified me, because temporary often became permanent. That night, I hugged Zariah tightly as she slept. "I'll protect you," I promised, "no matter what." Under her pillow, something hard pressed against my hand. I froze. Carefully, I pulled it out. It was an old tablet, cracked screen, outdated model. "Zariah?" I whispered. She stirred slightly, then opened her eyes. "Mommy, don't look at it," she said nervously. My heart raced. "What is this?" I asked gently. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Daddy said you're not allowed to know." My heart was pounding so loudly I was afraid it would wake her. "Zariah," I whispered carefully, holding the cracked tablet in my hands. "Why do you have this?" She sat up slowly, clutching her blanket. "Please don't be mad, Mommy," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't do anything bad." I immediately sat beside her and pulled her into my arms. "I'm not mad," I promised. "I just want to understand." She hesitated, then whispered, "Daddy gave it to me a long time ago. He said it was old and broken, but it still works." "Why hide it?" I asked softly. She looked down at her hands. "Because Daddy talks differently when you're not there." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" I asked quickly. She swallowed hard. "Daddy says Mommy cries too much, that Mommy is sick in the head. He says if I tell you, you'll get worse." Tears streamed down my face. "And the tablet?" I asked. She sniffed. "I turn it on when Daddy is on the phone, or when that lady comes over." That lady. My hands began to shake. "What lady, sweetheart?" She looked up at me. "The pretty one, the one Daddy hugs." I didn't sleep that night. After Zariah fell back asleep, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the tablet resting on the table in front of me. I wanted to turn it on, but I was terrified of what I might see. At dawn, I finally gathered the courage. I pressed play. The first video showed my living room. Tremaine was sitting on the couch, and beside him was Dr. Valencia. They were laughing. Too close. Too comfortable. Then she leaned in and kissed him. I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. The next clip played automatically. Their voices were clear. "She's falling apart faster than I expected," Valencia said, sipping wine. Tremaine chuckled. "Good. The judge already sees her as unstable." "And the child?" she asked noyantly. "She's easy," he replied casually. "Gifts, attention, she believes whatever I tell her." My stomach twisted. Another clip. "I've already moved most of the money," Tremaine said. "She won't have anything to fight with." Valencia smiled. "Perfect. I'll reinforce the emotional instability narrative in court." My hands were ice cold. There were dozens of recordings, dates, times, conversations, plans, lies, betrayal layered upon betrayal, and then one clip broke me completely. Tremaine's voice, laughing. "If Nala loses custody, we'll take the girl and move away. She'll forget her mother in a year." Valencia laughed softly. "Children always do." I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. My daughter had been listening to this, recording this, alone. That morning, I showed everything to Attorney Abernathy. He stared at the screen, stunned. "This," he said slowly, "changes everything." "Is it legal?" I asked desperately. "Can we use this?" He nodded. "In this state, one-party consent applies. Your daughter recorded conversations in her own home. This is admissible." I covered my face and sobbed. "But there's a problem," he continued. "What?" I asked desperately. "She's a minor," he said, "and if we present this, your husband will claim you manipulated her." "I didn't know," I said quickly. "I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," he said gently, "but the court needs to hear it from her." Fear gripped my chest. "She's just a child," I whispered. "I can't put her through that." Abernathy was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes," he said softly, "children are braver than adults." The next court date arrived. The tension in the courtroom was unbearable. Tremaine looked confident, almost smug. Valencia sat behind him, composed and elegant, like she had already won. The judge reviewed the previous testimony. Then Attorney Abernathy stood. "Your Honor," he said, "we request permission for a minor witness to address the court." Tremaine's head snapped up. "What?" he whispered sharply to his lawyer. Valencia's eyes widened just for a second. "On what grounds?" the judge asked. "The child has evidence relevant to the case," Abernathy replied. Objections exploded. "She's being manipulated. This is emotional abuse. She's too young." The judge raised his hand. "Bring the child forward," he ordered. My heart stopped. Zariah walked into the courtroom, holding the tablet tightly against her chest. She looked so small, so fragile, yet her eyes were steady. She stood before the judge. "Do you understand why you're here?" the judge asked gently. She nodded. "Yes, sir." "And no one told you what to say?" She shook her head. "No, Daddy told me not to say anything." The courtroom went silent. She took a deep breath. "Your Honor," she said softly, "my mommy is not bad." Tremaine stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down," the judge ordered. Zariah continued. "My daddy said my mommy cries because she's weak, but mommy cries because she's sad." My tears fell freely. "She hugs me every night. She never forgets me. She never scares me." She lifted the tablet. "I recorded Daddy because he said Mommy shouldn't know." Gasps filled the room. "May I play it?" she asked. The judge nodded slowly. "Yes." She pressed play. The screen lit up. The first video played. Then the next. Then the next. Laughter. Confessions. Plans. The affair. The money. The lies. Tremaine jumped to his feet. "Turn that off!" he shouted. Security restrained him. Valencia's face went pale. "This is illegal," she cried. "No," the judge said coldly. "It isn't." The final video played.
Tremaine's voice echoed through the courtroom. "She'll forget her mother." Silence. Absolute silence. The judge removed his glasses. "This court has seen enough," he said. He turned to Tremaine. "You manipulated a child, you committed fraud, you conspired with a professional to deceive this court." Valencia collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Court officers approached her. Tremaine screamed, "You're ruining my life." "You ruined it yourself," the judge replied calmly. "Furthermore," he added, "this court refers both Tremaine and Dr. Valencia to the district attorney's office for investigation of fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. Court officers, take them into custody." Chaos erupted. Tremaine fought, shouting and cursing as he was restrained. Valencia cried hysterically as officers led her away. The sound of handcuffs echoed through the courtroom. Justice was no longer an idea. It was happening. The moment court was adjourned, I ran to Zariah. I dropped to my knees and wrapped my arms around her, holding her as tightly as I could without hurting her. "You were so brave," I whispered through tears. "I'm so proud of you." She clung to me, finally allowing herself to cry. "I was scared, Mommy," she sobbed, "but I didn't want to lose you." "You never will," I promised. "Never." Attorney Abernathy stood nearby, quietly wiping his eyes. "She saved this case," he said softly, "and she saved you." "No," I replied, holding my daughter closer. "She saved herself." Months later, our lives looked nothing like before. We didn't return to the large house filled with cold silence